My colleague Bret Baier spoke with former President Trump for an exclusive interview in the Granite State ahead of the primary on Tuesday. A great get. Fox News chief political anchor and anchor of Special Report Bret Baier joins me now. Bret, great to see you.
Hey, Mike.
So you asked.
Good afternoon. Yeah, we did this pull aside. Yeah.
Go ahead. Tell us about it.
Well, we did this pull aside in this right before his rally last night here in town, and pretty well attended. I mean, it was people lining up for a long time to get in. Enthusiastic crowd. I just asked him a couple of things about his primary opponent here in New Hampshire, Nikki Haley, and what she's been saying about his mental capacity, as you just heard Brian's report there, about his foreign policy, that sort of thing, and also the fact that Nikki Haley is focusing and mentioning his legal troubles as part of the chaos she talks about. Here's a piece of that pull-aside interview. So she did mention also today your indictments. And for the people out there that say there's another shoe that's going to fall with all of this stuff, I know you say it's all political, but there are people who she's tapping into that say this is going to be a problem come election.
These are all Biden indictments. These aren't indictments. These are Biden. This is a political opponent. He's coming after a political opponent. He is bad for democracy. I mean, he is the one. He is very dangerous, very bad for democracy because he cannot win fair. Look at Fannie Willis. She was involved in the White House. Her and her lover that she paid almost $1 million in fees to, legal fees, they were in the White House dealing with the DOJ. And then they indict, and now it finds out that they're scammers, okay? And that one now is, I guess, down the tubes. We're doing very well in them, but they did this. This is all political stuff, and it's a very bad thing for our country. And remember, that goes the other way, too. If a Republican gets in, I'm not just saying me, if a Republican, they can do the same thing to a Democrat. It's a very dangerous thing. It's never happened in this country. It happens in third world nations.
So one thing on the legal stuff, you say that the immunity issue, you would like the Supreme Court to grant you immunity when you were president.
No.
Everybody.
All presidents have to have immunity. If they don't, they won't be able to function. They won't be able to say, we have to go into a war or we have to do something that's very strange, very tough. Maybe it doesn't sound good, but it's the right thing to do. If you don't have immunity, you might as well not even have a presidency.
But so the judge that was going over that said that to your lawyer, the hypothetical, that if as president you took out a political operative, a political opponent with a special ops team and you killed them, then they would be immune.
So they were talking about a political opponent from another country, the head of a country and all of this. Look,
I mean, you can go down this hypothetical.
Sure, you can. But a president has to have complete and total immunity. Or the president, as an example, Harry Truman. Harry Truman, you could say, let's go get him for Hiroshima. Let's go get him for what he did. He killed, hundreds of thousands of people. Anybody, if you don't have immunity, anybody coming out will be indicted by the opposing party, and it'll happen almost without question.
But you could play it out. If President Biden came after you, he would have immunity?
As an example, with all of the things he's done, with Afghanistan, the worst removal in history, with all of the thing, what he's done in Afghanistan, 13 soldiers killed, many soldiers just obliterated, leaving people behind, and giving up $85 billion worth of brand new equipment that I bought because I rebuilt the military. Biden would be absolutely, and I'm not even mentioning his personal stuff. I'm not even mentioning that. I'll stay away from that. But if a president doesn't have immunity, he will be unable to function. I think the presidency would be a disaster without immunity.
Bret, great stuff there. So far, President Trump has spent a fair amount of time at courthouses dealing with some of these legal cases rather than being on the campaign trail, and yet the polling suggests he is really strong. Is it your sense that Republican primary voters feel like he is being taken out by allies of the current president?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's even swayed some independents, Mike, who think that some of these efforts legally are political in nature as he describes them. And some people we talk to on the ground say, there's a reason why they're going after him this hard. Maybe because he is the bull in the china shop when it comes to Washington. That said, there are also voters here who are concerned that another shoe is going to drop before the election, that a conviction could affect the ability to beat President Biden. So that's the battle we're seeing on the ground here in New Hampshire, and one that Nikki Haley is really trying to tap into with Governor Sununu on every stop that they make, that you can't afford, they say, to have the former president in that pole position against President Biden. We'll see if it takes. Right now, there's still a lot of support in this state for the former president.
Then on the Democratic side, it's a bit awkward as President Biden wanted South Carolina to go first. There's this write-in campaign for allies of the current president to write him in on the ballot. But what if Joe Biden loses New Hampshire? What about the headlines that would come from that?
Yeah, it'd be embarrassing. The party has, at his direction, decided that South Carolina was going to be the first official primary, and that really flew in the face of Iowa and New Hampshire. New Hampshire really got upset about it and took him off the ballot here. Congressman Dean Phillips from Minnesota campaigning now, trying to make that moment where he possibly gets enough votes to overtake the write-in. Something tells me the Biden effort is going to be substantial here, and the write-in may pull it out, but it would be majorly embarrassing as you head forward. He is a weakened president as you look at the approval ratings on a number of issues.
Bret Baier will be looking for more clips of that great interview. Thanks for your time.
All right, see you, Mike.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.